We all know about mindfulness and meditation. These little things are just as powerful as that. I'm pastelist Avon Waters, and my channel is dedicated to helping artists become better artists. This is a underpainting in acrylic, and I'm going over it. It has clear gesso over it so that the brush strokes and the clear gesso, I'm just going to be working on this while I chat with you about how our brains process what we do with our hands and our art. But today's episode is launching a special series about how our brains and art work together to create a better self. For my regular viewers, don't worry, nothing's changing. I'll be back next week with techniques and methods and everything. Nothing's going away. I recently read a book and then reread it. It's called Your Brain on Art. It's by Susan Magazaman and Ivy Ross. It was a fascinating book and eye-opening about how science is now backing up what you and I and artists for hundreds of years have intuitively known, that art is a benefit to us mentally, physically sometimes, lowers stress, and all those other things that you've read and heard about. So I'm going to start in the middle today. For those that have watched my channel, you'll know what I'm doing. And I'll tell you a little bit as I go along some of the things in this, but I'll also add in the description the scientific references. It's not me saying this, it's me sharing with you what we artists have intuitively kind of felt and known and heard about. I've talked about in private conversations how I have anxiety, not the garden variety of, oh, I'm a little shook up, but to the point where today's world, I have to watch how much news I consume. I have to watch who I talk to. And art kind of decompresses me. I can't consume very much news. That might sound a little bit like avoidance, but it's not. It's survival for me. For me, there's always some sort of level of anxiety that I'm always trying to manage. Listening to newscasts will really screw that up. Art helps me manage that. So what I found and what the research is supporting, when I'm making art, that's one of the most powerful things that I can do to help myself. You guys that have been following me, my channel, you know that I'm an art teacher, I'm an instructor. I love to share what I know. What I haven't shared with you, and I'm trying to make your art better. But guess what? Those neurologists that are now studying this stuff, they say that we only need 15 or 20 minutes a day of doing something with our hands. It doesn't matter whether what we make is good or not good. So if you're one of those people that says, oh, I can't draw a straight line, or I don't know anything about art, just doodling, just picking something up and making something with your hands. It doesn't have to be good. Your brain doesn't care whether it's good or not good, just the act of making it. So if you've been watching my channel and you've been struggling with trying to get good paintings, don't worry about it. Chill out, man. You know how I always say, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. Maybe all you need to do is just watch what I'm doing and follow along and do the best you can. Our brains are getting a benefit from that. So remember, it's not about the result, it's about the process. It's about showing up and doing something. The science shows that usually 10 or 15 minutes most days of the week is going to be better than spending several hours one day of the week. I like to think of it as training for some sort of sporting event. I'm not a marathon runner. You guys can look at me and tell that I'm not a marathon runner. So it's more about just showing up, going through the processes, going through the steps. Before I read that book and the studies that the neurologists are publishing, I knew I was getting some sort of benefit from art, and how I knew was when I would go on vacation or holidays and I'd be away from the studio, it wasn't long before my wife would notice that I was getting edgy and a little cranky. And pretty soon she'd come along and say, you need to get back in the studio. It's time I got you back. She's kind of always right, not just about that, but about everything usually. I noticed, again, before I read those studies and the science, Art hasn't just improved my focus. In a very real way, it's kind of saved my life. I don't have to, I take my mind, I'm taking my mind off of all those things that create that anxiety for me. So I'm doing better, a lot less Mr. Xanax. So what's happening? So what's actually happening neurologically when we make art? The researchers say that creative activity, it doesn't have to just be hands. We could be dancing. We could be playing music. It activates the reward part of our brain. Dopamine, I think, is what they said it releases. Their studies show that part of our brain lights up when we feel pleasure and connection or accomplishment. We all kind of know this when we accomplish something and people go, even when we were a kid, oh, that's really good, Avon. Oh, you know, I always thought it was just narcissism, but no, that's the pleasure part of our brain that's lighting up. So when somebody sees our art and they like it, that's just added benefit. But we're getting pleasure from it whether they say so or not. The scientists tell us that making the art also kind of quiets that kind of network or default mode part of the brain that is responsible for when we worry or we start to get anxiety because we're worrying about something. Think of that part of the brain as the hamster wheel, where anxiety loves to go spinning around and around and around. But when your hand is moving and your eye is tracking across this painting like I'm doing here, your mind is solving problems. Your mind can do more than one thing at once to a limited degree. We can multitask with our eyes and our senses, but we really are focusing our mind on what we're doing, like I'm doing here. And that is taking that part of our brain out of gear and letting us have some relief. So you're not so much suppressing the anxious part of our brain, but you're giving it a redirection. You're genuinely redirecting the neural resources, is what they say. And that's not a metaphor. They actually measure this. And again, those sources will be down in the description. We all have friends, we're artists, who don't want to do art, maybe shy away from it, but they enjoy going to a museum. They enjoy listening to a concert. There's still benefit in that. So don't go out and make all your friends pick up a pencil and they're going to hate you and never show up at your house again. No. That's not what I want you to do. Just be aware that just even going out and looking at art and participating in art, that those people are also benefiting. It's a different level of engagement, but they also, the science is showing there's also benefit in that. But when you're the one holding the brush or the charcoal, or your brain is integrating your actions and your motor skills and your visual and emotional responses, all those things are happening. We're benefiting a lot from that. It's one of the most complex and coordinated things that the human brain can do, is make art, make something with your hands. Earlier I talked about consistency. Some of you may have seen some of my shorts. Every morning I get up and do a 15 or 20 minute exercise. I don't care whether it comes out. I just grab a charcoal pencil and I do a warm-up exercise just to get the blood moving, get my brain focused, so I can do the serious art next. So think of it as physical exercise. Like I said, you don't run a marathon once and call yourself fit. You have to build up a practice. You have to build up to the long distance thing. I think artists build up and develop a kind of cognitive resilience. We don't always talk about it enough. We're not open enough with one another. We're more, hey, what paper are you using? What pencils you've got? You know, we're more into those technical things. But over time, art builds up your tolerance to ambiguity. If any of you started following me and you thought, man, those things are kind of abstract, and you've been following me for the last couple of years and you're looking at my work, you're like, oh, I can see the landscape. I can see the horizon through there. I can see the horizon and the distance, the violets of the trees in the back. That ambiguity is part of what our brain is doing when we make art. It's giving us a tolerance for it. And that's that cognitive resilience I was talking about. Just a quick side note here. When I do these, even for when I'm teaching the technique to my fellow students and to artists that follow me here on this channel, I'm not really caring too much whether they like what I produce or not. So the idea that you have to produce good art to make a difference in your head, totally not true. It's nice when things, it's really nice when things turn out, but you know, hey, that's just an added benefit. That's a vanity. That's a vanity that is nice. Yeah, let me put a few little niches and nooks in here. Let me get some of that yellow up in that sky and intrude here. And it needs some more sky holes, but that's enough for today. That's enough. I'll stick that on my wall and figure out how to change it later. Well, thanks for listening. Let me tell you a little bit what's coming. And again, for my regular viewers, we'll be back next week with a regular technique. But I want this series on the brain and how art affects us when we make it to be something a little different. For you next week. But for those of you that want to learn more about how art and our brains work and even how color works, we're going to delve into some topics that include how we artists, when we talk about the muse or we get into a flow or we get into the groove. So we're going to talk about how the brain is working and how art is causing that. And if you learn that, we're going to learn how you can get into the groove maybe more often. You know I love color. We're going to talk about color and emotions and how our brain functions with that, how your brain processes color and how it's connected to emotions. I don't know about you, but I've noticed in my aging changes. So we're going to talk about art and cognitive aging. And I want to talk about the differences between art journaling and finishing our art. And I want to hear from you. If you've got a topic, I'll see if I can do some research on it, because I'm really getting into reading some of these peer-reviewed journals. That stuff will be down in the description if you want to seek out some of this information yourself. We'll have another great topic on tools and techniques for you next week. So thanks for sticking around, everybody. Happy painting and so long. Bye-bye. And please don't forget, none of what I'm doing is a substitute for seeing a doctor or a mental health expert. My purpose isn't for that. My purpose is just to alert you of some of the benefits. I want more people to make art and see some of the benefits that I've been able to experience and some of my friends have been able to experience. So until next time, everybody, happy painting and so long.